Human history can be described as a history of war since it was a continuation of wars. Even today, conflicts persist in various countries. Today, Chairman Lee Sang-Myeon will be examining the turbulent situation on the Korean Peninsula through the history of civilization of mankind and suggesting a vision of peaceful world without wars which humanity has been dreaming of. We will be welcoming to the stage Chairman Lee Sang-myeon, who will be presenting today's topic. But before that, we will watch a short video. After watching the video, the chairman will come up to the stage. Let us now watch the video.
4 a.m., June 25th, 1950. The Korean War began due to the invasion of North Korea. In 3 days, the capital of South Korea, Seoul, was taken, and in 33 days, 90% of all South Korean land is taken. Only 10% of South Korea remains. We can no longer hold the front lines. We'll be there soon. We'll need to protect the nation. We'll be there soon to protect the division headquarters. You are the student volunteer soldiers. Instead of military uniforms, wearing the school uniforms. Instead of helmets, wearing school caps. Having only learned how to shoot a rifle, they were deployed to the front lines. Their age was 15 to 18, just like most of middle school and high school students. The most powerful weapon that's left for them, it was courage. The courage to sacrifice their lives for their nation. In August 1950, North Korean forces were advancing to Busan after taking over Pohang. 71 student volunteers gathered at the Pohang Girls Middle School. 71 volunteers blocked hundreds of North Korean soldiers for 11 hours through close combat and crossfires. 11 hours. They earned 11 hours for the citizens to escape safely. They earned 11 hours for the US military to prepare for counterattack. 47 out of 71 student volunteers died. And there was an unsent letter that was later discovered in the pocket of the student who was killed. Dear mother, I killed a man with just a stone wall in between us. The enemy's legs and arms were torn off. It was such a brutal death. Although they are the enemy, they're still the same human beings. Especially they share the same language and blood with us. That's what makes me feel much worse. Dear mother, why do we need to fight wars? Mom, I want this war to end quickly and I want to see you again. I will make sure to stay alive and return home. Mom, I think the North Koreans are coming to us again. Bye bye, Mom. But this is not the end. I'll write to you again. Then, later. Lee-gun, your son, August 10th, 1950. With this letter as the last writing, Lee-gun, the student volunteer, was found as a corpse. If I think about it these days, I can only cry. This kind of war, if you don't experience it, you cannot know what it feels like. You cannot know what it feels like. Armistice agreement signed at Panmunjom in 1953, July 27th. Hundreds of thousands of war orphans, millions of separated families due to the Korean War that lasted for 3 years, 1 month, and 2 days. The entire city of Kaesong had been bombed, and I was separated from my mother because all the jet fighters were coming to Kaesong. So why was I separated? How can a family be separated? Not able to meet each other? This cannot happen again. Families that had to be separated because of war. The only divided nation in the world. The war must stop now. Do you want peace? Peaceful Korea. Inter-Korean Summit on April 27th, 2018. The two leaders solemnly declared before the 80 million Korean people and the whole world that there will be no more war on the Korean Peninsula, and thus a new era of peace has begun. We're not different nations who must fight against each other, but we are one nation with one blood to live peacefully in harmony. We agreed upon concrete solutions to open a new era of peace on this warless, peaceful world. That's what we agreed upon. Peace. So how will we make peace? The work of peace does not belong to a single individual. This is a universal value that all mankind must be able to enjoy, and a right we must get back, and we have the duty to restore peace on the Korean Peninsula as South Korean citizens. CPF 2018.
Nice to see everyone today. The Cessation of War and World Peace Unification Forum uh, by Cheonji-Daily News. Thank you for all of you for your attendance. Today, I am the chairman of. I am the chairman who is also leading today's forum, but I am also the one who will give the presentation regarding peace. There are so many things that I want to say, and so I have come in front of you today. Before we go into today's topic, what is it that you saw? We, you have watched a short video, and in the background of this video, what I am very curious to what you have felt. I wanted first I would like to open up a dialogue. For example,
In a Korean traditional story, there is a girl named Shim-chung, and she died for her parents, her father, but eventually she was born again. This is a beautiful story of filial piety. But Jesus also, for the salvation of mankind, he came to this world, right? I'm sure that you all know across all religions how Jesus, through his blood, saved all mankind as a sacrificial lamb. And that's what you saw also. In the Korean War, many soldiers shed their blood to save this country, and there were many student volunteer armies as well. And I believe that most citizens in South Korea know about this historical fact. And through this video today, there are certain things I want to emphasize. So what is it? It is the sacrifice that's made for wars. There were people who didn't know why they had to fight for the wars, but they had to fight in the wars and go to the front lines as a sacrifice. So why did they have to make such a choice? And their blood, through this video that we saw, was the blood that made South Korea possible. But not many people know about their sacrifices. That these young soldiers died for the country and saved South Korea. Therefore, that's why the reason why I'm reminding you of the message is because this is the main topic of today's speech as well. I heard the moderator say that every one of you is a special guest today. And I can see that each one of you in the audience is truly a special guest today. And there will be a few more special guests that I'd like to introduce later on. First of all, there is the Congressman Lee Wan-yong from the 자유한국당 Party. And there is the chairwoman of IWPG, International Women's Peace Group. There is a speaker, vice speaker for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And I saw a congressman from 더불어민주당 Party. And there's a Secretary General of Heavenly Culture, World Peace Restoration of Light, HWPL, Im Jun-taek. And many other distinguished guests wanted to come to the event today, but I said no to them because it is very hot today. Freedom and peace means we live peacefully together. So that's why I said please come next time. And now I'd like to go on to the main speech. We're living in the social network era. So even if we don't travel much, we can look at the world events and what's going on in the world. There are many events such as big rain and disasters, but all these things we can know through the social networks available to us. So what is the topic for today's presentation? It is peace, right? And this is a universal value that all mankind must be able to enjoy. And that's the subtitle that you can see on the presentation, right? The universal value that all mankind must be able to enjoy. So what is mankind and what is universal value? I'd like to analyze what this means. So universal means this holds true for everyone. And so peace is a value that is important for every single one of us. And it's also right for us. However, peace remains as an elusive dream for us. Because peace is a universal value that we must strive for. We must work for it ourselves. Because nobody gives it to us. It is a right and a duty as well. Just like the duty of national defense or duty of taxation. This is something that we must be able to enjoy together as a community, so we must make peace together. This is this is the importance of peace in our generation. Many people claim peace, peace, but why do we need peace? Why do we want peace? Without thinking about these things, people just claim they want peace. If we look at ourselves in our generation, we can see that we just want peace without knowing what it means to have peace. So on this day, it's a very hot day. I'd like to have a conversation with you about mankind's history and civilizations. And what kind of generation are we living in right now? So in this generation, what kind of work should we do together? So in a logical fashion, I'd like to analyze one by one.
Now I'm giving you this lecture. And who am I? I am the Director General of Cheonji-Daily News. Cheonji means there is nothing greater than that in this world, greater than heaven and earth. There are many people and many press, but there is no press bigger than us. So as a Director General, my mind, I must resemble the great heaven and earth. So please listen to this lecture I'm about to give you and see whether I live up to the name of our news. So evaluating me will be the second, but first we must gain a lesson, learn a lesson from this lecture. So briefly, we should know about Cheonji-Daily News as well. So as you can see from the screen, it's a Cheonji
daily news, and there is a blank. So please write it down and try to figure out, fill in the blanks. In short, it means being neutral, being objective. In order to pursue that value of being neutral and objective, so it means the middle path, the path in the middle. So am I just talking about the path in the middle, or am I talking about the conservative, liberal, not belonging to either group, but standing in the middle ground? So what is it that we want to pursue? So no matter where we belong, which group we are in, if other groups' opinion and their idea is correct, we should be able to accept it and follow it. That is being neutral and being objective. Because I'm on the right, I will reject left. Doesn't make sense, and that is not correct. So as a media, I think most important thing is keeping things neutral and fair and objective. And all of you who are here, sometimes without even knowing, we are very used to being subjective, but it is something that we must improve upon. That is our homework. When we are seeking peace, and we must do that even more. And furthermore, Korea, there are two major groups, Democratic Party and Liberal Party. And a lot of people say that they have to set their value first. But the words they speak and their action does not reflect what they preach. And all people witness that. Conservative means you protect and preserve. What is it that they protect? They're protecting and preserving the value they have. It is following and protecting people, culture, history, and all the charters and the law, keeping everything that is conservative, but not remaining in that. But they want to make things better so they could improve. So when you hear this, and those who are calling themselves liberal, they want to improve, but their action, do they live up to their values and what they said they would do? Sometimes it doesn't match at all. What does that suggest us? They don't understand, they don't know the value. And the characteristic of our Korean Peninsula, it is divided north to south, and communism and the democracy. And things are corrupted or fabricated and changed. So it is not a matter of just saying which group you belong to. In many ways, we are destroying many parts of our society with our decisions in mind. And the leaders must lead their people to the right path. But we cannot see that, we cannot find that. And I can confidently say to you, as a Director General of a news company, so this value of keeping things neutral and keeping this fair and objective, that is the reason why I work as the News Director General. So I wanted to explain this before I go on. So you will get to hear what we do, what Cheonji-Daily News does as a group, because everything I say here is you can hear it live broadcast. So I have to speak faster, and there are many things I want to cover. But there's so much I want to say. Not sure if I can cover everything. But please be with us and stay till the end because there are police that will stop you from going out. So this kind of lecture that I'm about to give you, it is incomparable. It is very special. So so let's dive into the main subject of today. The word peace. Try to think of it in a broader sense. It is very precious. But this precious peace was very abstract up to this point. This is our reality. But however, we felt like it was somewhere far off. Someday it will come. That's how we felt about peace. And why did we have such understanding? And I want to mention 지즉위진간. Some of you may know who wrote this. Jung-gu. You hear this word. It's from Seongjong, one of the king in Korean history. Actually, it is from the long sentence, but it is remembered by people, and many people use this idiom expression because it has great meaning. And you can see it on the screen. When we see, and we know, we say that very simply and easily. But when is it? Can we really say we see? Because your physical eye is watching something, and then you just read letter ha, then you can say ha. That doesn't mean that you see. You have to see what is beneath that, the true meaning. When you realize the true meaning, then you can say, aha, that is what I see, and then that's how I understand. So 지즉위진간 is very important. So this topic of peace, which is universal value for all mankind. So we have to understand this meaning. We talk about peace and we're searching for peace when we don't even know what that means. And that shouldn't be the case. So one by one, let us examine this topic. So as you can see from the screen, word peace is written in 3 languages. 평화 in Hangul, Korean language, and in Chinese and in English. This country and that country, actually at the end, we're all same. Everything belongs to all of us. So when we say 평화, the word peace, there is no other word that could be easily said, pronounced like the word 평화. Any people can mention the word peace so easily. Because other words, sometimes it is inconvenient, it is hard to enunciate or pronounce the word. But 평화, peace, is very simple to say. And it is Hangul made by the great King Sejong. He made it very convenient for people to make sounds with Korean Hangul. And Chinese character has meaning. Each stroke has meaning. And that Chinese character also belong to us as well. and Un Kingdom, Sang Kingdom. At the time, the word peace, the character for peace was made at that time, that early on. Dr. An, and they met together. There was time people complained, why are you making Chinese character to confuse our people, and it is difficult for them to learn. So the other, Dr. An said, actually it is your language. It is not me who made this character. That is the story, famous story that you may know. Also the alphabet in Mediterranean Sea. There was a group of people who started their group and society early on. And this alphabet was made. And it was passed to Greece and to Europe and to America. And it became the official universal language. So I cannot tell you all in detail of how language came about. However, what I'm telling you is that we shouldn't say that we know something when we don't know the details of how it came to appear. So Tolstoy, he wrote a very famous novel, War and Peace, and it is opposite concept, contrary concept. If you think about it, the word peace wouldn't exist at the very beginning because you need a circumstance which helps you to think about peace. Something happened that made word peace to appear because there is war. Like the peace is the universal value that all mankind should enjoy. So people wanting peace, so very naturally, because there is war, peace appears. And this is what we should know. And there is war, battle in the world, and you say, oh, they have war. And that's not something that you should stop, but you have to think more and see how these two words, we have to think about why those two words appeared. The contrary concept, very important to think about. It's the war which make people long for peace. How and why war came into the world. And it gave us most terrible and painful experience. We have to dive in and see the origin and the beginning of this war. Why did war break out? What is the beginning of war? Are you bored? Can you listen well? People up front, they're not responding. So why did war happen? You have to actually think about it, right? So it is time to actually study together. We have to question and think about why war break out. If there is one, just one group, would we see war happen? Because people are not gathered together as one, but because they're divided. That's how war begins. And what we want is not war but peace. Then how can we accomplish peace? And that essential answer for us. That is the truth and logic that we must think about. But today, when we try to think outside of logic and rationale, and we are just very used to things that is outside of truth, we have abandoned truth. That is why we cannot find the truth and the answer. When the answer is so close to me, within my reach, and I'm thinking that everything changed and everything is corrupted. But when you sow the bean, you will reap bean. That is something that all of us understand, and that is called truth. It is very important. War and peace. Because there's war, there's peace. What is the connection and why do we have war? When we are one, do we see war taking place? No. How can we accomplish peace? Then we can find the simple answer. So peace, when we define it, making people become one, that is peace. It is not something we go out and then try to build peace. It is not existing somewhere else alone. But the effort of becoming one, that itself is peace. When you understand the purpose of peace and have heart, let's become one, walk the same direction as one group, and the moment when you put in effort to see peace, then we call that is peace. If you want peace, the very words that I speak to you right now, you will be listening and taking to your heart. Being selfish, self-centered, you will not listen and this will not interest you at all. So whether you are following truth and wanting peace, truth, or are you against it? So I don't want to block the words on the PowerPoint. So I have to stay within the circle so they can record me on the camera. So I'm busy trying to do everything up here. So I ask for your understanding and the content, that is what's important. It doesn't matter how we look like, but what is important is the content that I'm delivering to you. So peace is what bringing people together. I believe you listened and you understand this. So let's analyze this one by one. Through the history of human race, so the path we walked, and find the answer through examining that. So when we say global village, we say village. So rather than saying world, we start to call it global village, which means we're one. In Chinese character, what does it mean when we say Chon? It means one village. So we say global village. What does that mean? This globe, this earth, it is in position of village. So in many ways, we are making this atmosphere of becoming one as a village. So we have union, committee. We all made this so that we could become one. Am I right? These names are given so that we will become one. Although we made it so that we could become one, but when there is each group's wants and desire, and they go after that, then people start to fall apart. So this cannot be just done physically through the physical structure, but let's think about the inner aspect of this. So we learned a lesson that physical boundary cannot bring people together thoroughly. Then the true peace how to make people become true one, we have to give our ears and listen to this idea of sharing same thoughts and having same motivation and pursuing same goals. So when we have this emotion of sharing, doesn't matter how our skin tone are different, and I live near sea, I live near mountain, doesn't matter. It's beyond the boundaries of race, culture, language. So the entire human race, they are sharing same idea. When we come to realize that, and the moment, that is what I'm emphasizing here. When people become one like that, and people become one innerly, not outerly. So the value we must share. So up to this point, maybe it was forced physically. You don't want to be left out. So you want to be part of group. So through that physical force and regional pressure, so all those reasons forcing us to become one cannot bind us together as one forever. So wanting to gain benefits for one particular group cannot lead us to becoming one. So what I'm speaking here to you right now, it is inevitable truth. So if you want to complain that oh you don't understand the reality, the harsh reality of the world, then I encourage you to think about from the very beginning. And it's better to do it right from the beginning than doing it all wrong. So our thoughts and what we pursue and strive after, 80% of all the conflicts which end up seeing war is caused by religion. And this kind of issue, it is something that we should focus on, and people have to come together inwardly in order for people to come together. So what is the common value for us? Universal value. It is expressed different ways in different words, but the very reason we need freedom, peace, and happiness in our life, what are we trying to get out of it? It is we are wanting peace so that we could live a happy life and life of freedom. So this universal value, that is what we must understand correctly. All people, they want to live with peace, freedom, and we all have that right. But because of certain reason, these precious values that was given to us was taken away. So we have duty, given duty to reclaim that.
That is for peace, the need for peace education and enlightenment. Up until now, what you have heard briefly, the summary is that you probably have felt what the whole world needs to know. But what we need is your help. Our thoughts need to come together, and we have to have the same thought, and we have to know that we all have similar thoughts. Even if we live far apart and our religions are different, even if our skin color is different, but the thing that we wanted is the same. That is what we need to make people realize because they do not know. That is what education is. And then further, And then one step further from that is what enlightenment is. And for example,
안보 공자만을 제가 써놨으니까 제 머릿속에 있는 게 있죠. 상록수라고 아마 있을 겁니다. 그 상록수가
um, is an evergreen tree.
밝힌 게 아니고 소설 상록수. 저 일제에 취하해서
A novel.
최영식인가요? 주인공.
The title of the novel is An Evergreen Tree.
우리 대한제국이 일제에
During
36년 동안
For 36 years, when Korea was under the colonization of Japan, those who grew up at that time, because they lived as under the colonization for 36 years,
원래 이러한 것이 우리의
they
운명이고
they thought that this was their destiny and that this was how life is supposed to be,
생각이 고착되면서
and that is how their thoughts were formed and they lived.
밝힌 것이 바로 그 소설에 나온 내용처럼
And
계몽이라는
this book holds the content. The content of this book is regarding the enlightenment.
진단이죠. 참 의미를
And so the true meaning, the true is giving them understanding of the truth. And so their eyes are open and they are able to see correctly. This world, this people, the people of the Republic of Korea, the reality of it, they are able to know it and know the truth of it now.
부모도
And so their parents,
형제도
their brothers, their house,
그리고 풀мет자로 딱
he
어머니
put it all behind him, wrote it down, and
짊어지고
he took a bag with him
미국으로 하와이로
and went to America, Hawaii. And for what?
독립을 하는 것이
In order for the independence of this nation, to find his nation.
계몽의 필요성
The importance of education, the importance of enlightenment.
사라지고
Why did peace disappear?
다툼과 분쟁
Why are there conflicts and wars?
이러한 역사만
Why is there only the history?
현실이 되겠죠.
Why is the history of conflicts and war our reality?
정확한 답을 가진 사람이
The-
교육을 해줘야 돼요.
The one who has the answer is the one who needs to teach it.
여기 있는 지도자, 대부분 지도자분들입니다.
So most of the people here are leaders of some sort. I told them to gather leaders because there's something that I need to tell them. And then that is all of you.
상록수. 그다음에 밑에
And so that is the evergreen tree. And then below,
큰 분이 하나
and then there is a large person on the screen.
루마니아
He is the former president of Romania,
에밀 포스텐
Emil
네스쿠.
Constantinescu. Is that right?
저기 안 봐도 잘 알죠.
You know even if I don't look behind, right?
그 대통령에 대한 말씀들을 잠깐
I will say a short thing regarding him.
냉전 시대에
Um,
소련의 지배하에 있었어요.
Romania was in civil war.
그래서 공산주의가 어떠한
Um,
주의고
so
어떠한 사상과 거기에서
what kind of ideology is behind communism?
이것을 몸소 다 경제 이런 모든
Uh,
것을 지도자 대통령이었습니다.
He's the president that experienced the communism,
하고 분석을 하고 판단을 하고 있었던 분.
but he is the one who analyzed and made decisions during this time.
루마니아 국가가 된 후에
And then after Romania became a democratic country, what is his role now?
이것을 전 세계를 다니면서
And so he goes around the world and he teaches people regarding the importance of peace, why we need to have freedom,
자유의 소중함,
the value of freedom. He is awakening people.
일깨우고
He is awakening people to the value of peace.
자유를 누리고 있는 가운데 있는 그 사람들은 자유의 소중함을
The people who are surrounded by freedom do not know the value of freedom. So he finds them and educates them.
분단된 우리 대한민국에서
And so in the Republic of Korea that is divided,
하나라고 저는 생각합니다.
I believe that this is a very important aspect and content.
그래서 이 교육과 계몽의
And so that was me talking about the importance of education and enlightenment.
통일이다라는 말씀은 이렇게 여러분들에게
And then now I wanted, and then the value of a common humanity is the will of heaven. And so what does this mean? How many minutes have passed? What time is it? Even even if you say it, the sound doesn't reach up to the stage. It has been about 30 minutes. There, the path, the path before me is long, so I'm seeing your reactions as I go. This lecture might be a little boring to you, but is it boring to you? Is it fun? If you said that it was boring, then I was going to give you a present, but since you say it's not boring, shall I give you a present? Then I will sing a song.
I want you to make sure that you follow the lecture well, so that's why I want to even entertain you with a song. Please pay attention to the lyrics of the song that I'm singing. I don't even need any accompaniment. It's called A Ship That's About to Leave from Us. The ship on which you're boarded, I will miss it very much. You left me on this beach all by myself. You are leaving me here alone. Finally, you are leaving me on this ship.
Yes, now? I'm trying to give a lecture. Just in case that you're bored. That is why I did this. Please forgive me if I did not do well. And now I will continue with the lecture. So the value of a common humanity is the will of heaven. This is very important. What did you know the value of common humanity to be? Peace. The right to live happily. This is what we have come to understand. This value, it has been given to us by the heavens. And so that is why we are allowed to be born and live. But why does this disappear? Why did this disappear? We have to know of the deterioration. And so the people are heaven. Through education and enlightenment, when you discover this, the result is that this is the value that that heaven has given us, and that is what we have come to understand. And then the leader must open the way according to the will of the people. And so in order for the happiness of people, if this is what you want, then a leader must open the road in that direction. Peace, unification, in what way can it be made? But but we are witnessing the reality of But it is impossible through people, diplomacy, politics, and military.
만들어진 이유는
The,
뭡니까?
the UN, why was the UN created? It was for peace.
1914년 제1차 세계대전이
For,
발발하고
after the World War II,
17년인가에 끝났어요. 그래서 지구 춘에는 이제 전쟁이
And-
참혹한 줄 몰랐다. 그래서 그걸 없애기 위해서
and then
만든
they said that they didn't realize that the war could affect the world like this, so that is why they came to create the United Nations.
피비린내 나는 사육의 세상이 되고 말았어요. 그래서 이것도 안 되겠다. 끝나자마자 만드는 게 바로
But
유엔입니다. 연합입니다.
so as soon as the war ended, the UN is what was created, and
전쟁을 끝낼 수가 없었어요.
but
평화를 가져올 수가 없었어요.
they were unable to end wars. They were unable to bring peace.
유엔도 평화를 가져올지
This
못하고 있어요.
organization of the United Nations, they were unable to bring peace to the world.
이러한 미래를 우리는 예측하고 두려워하고 살아가야 하는 그런 오히려 그런 현실이 되거든요. 오히려 이 국제연합
But-
평화를 이루어야 되겠. 평화를 위해서 만들어진 이 국제연합은 전쟁을 하지 못하게 하기 위해서는 전쟁을 해야 된다는
The United Nations was created to prevent wars, but
헌장입니다. 이런 것도 우리가 알아요.
and for that, that is why they created the UN Charter.
국제법을 가지고도
And then even with the international law,
평화를 논한다라고 하는 것은 우리는
but the thing that is peace,
그걸 뭐라고 표현해야 딱 맞겠습니까?
how can we express it for it to be fitting?
아예 이룰 수 없는 것을 괜히 그냥
Something,
하는 거예요.
they're doing something that seems to be unachievable.
기명하는 건데 이치라는 것이 고침이라고 하는 것이 분명히 이런 것을 우리는 분명히 알아야 됩니다. 밑에 남극이라고 있어요. 저 칠레라든가
But
미국이라든가
whether it's Chile or the United States or New Zealand,
자원이 보고라는 걸 알았습니다. 발견될 때부터 자기 나라 사유화시키기 시작했습니다. 그래서는 안 되겠다.
And-
서로
and
또
our-
충돌하겠다. 해서 그들끼리 뭘 만들었어요? 또 연합을 만들었어요.
and so they themselves have made a group and let us.
공동의 소유로 생각하자. 그런데 세월이 지나다 보니까 어떻습니까?
But even
욕심이 생기거든?
even through their group, eventually greed was created
하나
or formed,
발을 빼죠?
and then a nation would pull out of the group.
사람 외교 정책 분석. 자기들의 정치적 목적이라든가
Through their political intentions,
평화를 세계 인류에게 호도해서는 안 되죠.
they
호도해서는 안 되는
they cannot lead people astray for their own political intentions.
힘 있는 나라나 힘 있는 권력을 가진 사람들이
But
그걸 갖고 장난을 치려고 하면 안 되죠.
people with power authority cannot
알아야 돼요. 이거.
must not abuse their power.
EU도 마찬가지죠.
It is the same thing with the the European Union. Right now, there is about 28 to 29 countries, but there was the exit of Britain that we know very well. The value that they created, that culture, why
난민을 받아서 공짜비로
why did they accept the refugees?
그것을 다 누리게 해줘야 되느냐.
They began to question why must they accept the refugees, and then they exited the EU.
안 된다.
But this is not acceptable.
다 보여주고 있는데도
Right now, the world is showing, even though the world is showing us, we are unable to see it.
왜? 욕심이
Why? It is because of greed.
욕심 때문에. 봐도
Even though you see it,
부인하죠.
they ignore it.
이런 현실을
And this reality,
여러분은 논리적으로 하나씩 정확하게 지금 듣고 계신
all of you are listening to it in logically step by step.
내용이 계속 이어지기 때문에 주제를 같이
And so these are subtopics. So the title is the same. It is impossible through people's thoughts, calculations, or greed, but people still keep holding on to that. And then we must follow sincerity, reason, and time. Peace must be permitted by the heavens. It must be permitted by the heavens.
들어보시면
If you listen, then continue to listen, you'll understand what I mean. And so the title is the same: Peace is not man, but the will of heaven. Through the lessons from the German reunification. The German reunification, there's those who here who know the story.
거기에 보면 성 니콜라스 교회라는 조그마한 교회가 있어요.
There is a small church, St. Nicholas.
평화.
They had a candle vigilance for the unification of Germany. And then this candle protest spread and spread. And then de Maizière was the prime minister at that time. But the people, what the people wanted, he said that they must accept what the people want. And so then he was the prime minister who opened that road for the people. But internally, during the time of the reunification, there were things happening internally, but it's not just through that it was possible. But what era was it?
양대 동서 진영이 극명하게 대립을 하다가 두 지도자에 의해서
The two leaders,
중식되는 시대를 그 시대는 막고 있었어요.
there was the Cold War occurring between the communists and the Democrats, and the whole world was looking at the flow of events. And then in Europe, and then when you look on the map of Europe, Germany, the country of Germany, geopolitical speaking, their location on the south, Netherlands, Belgium, France, England, they were on the west, and then the Soviet Union, Romania, Croatia, Poland, they were on the east side, Ukraine, and then on the south, what is on the south? Italy, Greece, and then Scandinavia, Sweden, Norway, they are on the north. And so when we look at the situation, we have to look at the situation. And then in Europe, in the geopolitical situation, Germany is located in the center. And then with Switzerland and Austria, they were neutral, and they said that they would not get involved. And so then what happened is that with the Alps, it was divided with the Alps. And then Europe, although they have to work together to eat and live, it was a very frustrating situation. And so it was right before this imploded within Europe. And so, like the few things that I have told you so far, although I'm saying that they've become unified through this or through that, in that era is what helped with the reunification of Germany. This situation is what made the reunification occur. Unification and peace, and peace, the heavens must permit it for it to be fulfilled. And so in that environment, that environment is what made it possible. It is through one special person or one special method, through one agreement. Although agreements can be broken. I hope that you will listen carefully. And so this Prime Minister de Maizière, at that time, this was a very important message that he gave. At that time, in that era, he came to an understanding. This is it. What is the answer? It is that the unification is the work of God. And so when he gave this message, this is something that is always included in lectures regarding this topic. And so 29 years ago, the Berlin Wall came down,
한반도라고 하는 이참 기막힌 현실 속에
and this astonished us living in this astonishing time, as the history is the flow of history. This is a lesson. History is a lesson. History is a teacher. Next,
여러분 지금 집중해 듣고 계시죠?
you're concentrating and listening, right?
불안해요.
I'm nervous.
평화는 사람이 아닌 이제
So peace is not man, but the will of heaven.
간단하게 넘어가겠습니다.
I'll just go through this briefly. I don't think I'll be able to go to the end because of time. And so there are many people who already know this. There was the Judah on the south and Israel in the north. This is the history of the Bible. That it is the history that comes out in the Bible, and is the history that is the Bible, and it is also part of the world history.
우연의 사람들의 어떤 관계 속에서 이러한 현상이 나타난 것이 아니다라는
So
것을 알려주고
I wanted to tell you that this is not something that happened coincidentally. And then the destruction of Babylon, that is also within this same logic. And then there's the Japanese-Korean relations and inter-Korean division. This fate, the destiny is the same. And so, in other words, where is today in Providence? Today, how can I express it? Is chaos? Chaos, is that the best way to say it? In this reality, it's not something to think about at the extreme. This chaos, in the midst of this chaos, there is something that is being created. And there's an economic term as well. When you hit the bottom, you will come up. So, but in this generation, so it may seem hopeless, but we don't need to think that way. And then, with what thoughts must we prepare the future and meet the future with? And that is something that I want us to think about. And then the history of human civilization, the flow. The words are small, so it's hard for me to see. And then the Orient. It's hard to know what this means by looking at it, but if you listen, you'll be able to understand. I'll be able to explain this without looking. Dongbang, the words that are in red means it's not. It means that it means to be wrong.
There are two ways to express the east, but the red, that's the wrong Chinese characters actually. The right one is the second one. The east in the meaning of direction. So what matters is where the country is. So what the word Dongbang, the east, means, we cannot see the origins of the word superficially, but when we go dig deeper into the fundamental meaning of the east, then we can find that the direction of the east is what's important. So in the direction of the east, that's important, right? So why is it important to know the direction? You must understand this in a more profound way to truly understand what this means. At this time, you can understand this. I don't know how much it took to get here, but you're really getting something valuable here today, right? So, what is the East? It is the direction of the East. So, why is it important, this direction? It is the symbolic significance of the East. The East is where the sun rises, and the West is where the sun sets. So, the word, the East, means where the sun rises. In the past, there was a Joseon dynasty in Korea. There was the land of the morning calm. Also, I'm sure you heard about the term called the Orient. So, where did that name begin? There was a there were people from the east to cross all the continent to reach the Roman Empire, and pointing to the civilization of the east, Romans named the culture of the east as Orient. So the civilizations in the Middle East was not the origin as of themselves, but it had another origin farther in the east. So the origin of all civilizations is the east. If you look at it more philosophically and in a more religious sense, the history of God, there must be an origin of God's work, right? And that is the east. So step by step, we can analyze what the east means fundamentally. We must know what this means, right? We must go to the east. If we do not know the roots, if we do not know the origin, then we're not living properly, right? If you look at the Chinese character of Asia, the first letter A, we call heaven and earth Cheonji in Korean, and I am the chairman of Cheonji-Daily News. And there are different streams of water from one source, and into four directions the water flows like a ripple. That's what it represents, this character. If you look at it from a Christian sense, this is symbolic of the cross as well, right? This is a connection between heaven and earth. In this Chinese character, we can see the natural order of things. Also, if you look at the next character, which represents king, this is also a connection between heaven and earth, the natural order of heaven and the natural order of the earth. And this is pointing to the heavenly emperor, actually. One time, this person will arrive. If you look at Chinese characters, well, there's another term called the sun and the moon and the five peaks. 일월 오봉도. There is this painting of the sun and the moon and the five peaks. So there's the sun and the moon, and there's a waterfall, and there's the heaven and the earth. In a normal painting of the sense, I mean, can the sun be together with the moon? Not really. This is not just an ordinary painting. This is actually a prophetic painting. This is still incomplete. There is going to be a king who is the bridge between heaven and earth. On that day, the natural order will be completed. But however, many people do not know about the meaning of the painting. They just use that painting as decorations, but that should not be the case. You must know first in order to see, right? If you don't know, that's not good. So, the east is where the sun rises. That's why I'm listing all these different representations of the east. The Joseon dynasty and Korea, which were the lamp of the east, as the poet Tagore said of India, Bangladesh. In fact, Tagore wrote this prophetic poem on the Cheonji-Daily newspaper. That's what he said. If you look at the poem, what can we see? This is implying something, right? This is prophesying something. In the future, there used to be a golden age in Asia, and when the lamp is lit again, again means basically because the lamp was turned off and now it's going to be lit again. That's what the poem of Tagore meant. There was a priest in Germany's St. Benedict's order. Under the 36 years of colonization of Japan, priest Weber, he came as a missionary. The Koreans were having such a hard time under the Japanese rule, but this nation has so much superior culture, but this culture could all be stolen to the Japanese, and it was about to be destroyed by the Japanese. And that's why he went around the Korean Peninsula to save and record the landscapes of the farming villages and all the realities of the Korean Peninsula. And he brought this documentation back to Germany. And he visited the Korean Peninsula twice. And the title of the book that he published was The Nation of the Morning Calm. And this is Korea. Because thanks to the efforts of this priest, we have access to the Joseon dynasty and how the ancestors lived back in the days. We can know in detail how they lived, and this is thanks to a foreigner actually that we can continue on the traditions of our ancestors. This is a very fortunate and thankful event, right? A historical event. From the eyes of a foreigner, he's telling us of the significance of the East. And if you look at the Bible, there is the Garden of Eden in the East in Genesis 2:8. That's how the Bible begins, right? And when you go to the end of the Bible in Revelation, there is the work of sealing from the place where the sun rises. So in the Bible also, in the beginning and the end of the Bible, we can see the East as well. Let us now look at the history of Noah. So we must trace back the history of the East. So let us look at the history of Noah. It was about BC 3000, so which was 5,000 years ago. So if you look at the Bible, especially Genesis 10 and 11, we can see that the Garden of Eden, where the Bible begins,
하나님이 세운 그 아담과 하와
and Adam and Eve betray God.
하나님의 역사는 엉클어질 수밖에 없는
God's work in history had to be
그 시대를 보라기 위해서 대사건을
stopped, and
있게 된 것을 여러분
there was the history of the great flood of Noah.
잠시 말씀을 드리는 거예요. 그 연장선에서
And
10장에 보면은 이게 노아의 계보가 쭉 나오면서 11장 1절과
there is the genealogies of Noah in chapter 10 of Genesis.
노아의 가족들이
And the family of Noah,
또 옮기려고 할 때 이런 표현이 나와요.
there's an expression called when the Noah's family wanted to go to the east.
그래서 멀어졌어요.
That means that Noah had been far away from the east,
떠나 있어요.
too far from the beginning.
떠나 있다가 동방으로 옮기겠다는 말이 나와요. 동방으로 옮기는
So it is said that
신할
the
평원에
Noah's family wanted to go back to the east.
거기서 바벨탑을 쌓는 사건이 나죠.
And there is
쌓는다는 뜻을 갖고 있죠.
the construction of the Tower of Babel.
최초에는 구음이 하나요, 언어가 하나였는데
There was one language before the construction,
행동을 보고
but because of this
하늘은
arrogant construction, God made all these different languages in the world.
이 성서를 통해서 우리는
We can see through the Bible the history of human civilization. And that's what I'm trying to introduce to you right now.
흐트러지는 역사가 있게 된 거예요. 자, 그러면서 이 인류는 동방이라고 하는 그 근원에서 시작해서 바로 위에서
So human civilization, starting from the east,
4대 문명이죠. 4대
now goes into the stage of the cradles of civilizations.
문명, 이집트 문명,
The four civilizations are ancient China, Indus Valley,
인도 문명, 황하 문명.
Mesopotamia, and ancient Egypt, right?
그럼 여기는 어디서부터 비롯된
So where did these civilizations come from?
만들어진
From what were they made?
강이라고 하는
They all share a common characteristic of sharing a river.
지에서 물이 흘러 강으로 흘러가는 것을
And
이치적으로 발견할 수
we can see the natural order in which water that flows through the rivers gives growth to civilizations. And so please listen to the lecture with all this big picture in your mind.
있는데 이 강이라고 하는 특히 저 메소포타미아 문명 같은
If you look at the Mesopotamian river, for example,
투 리버스라고
there are two rivers. So what does it mean? It is land between the two rivers.
이게 바로 신화. 거기서 너무나 살기 좋은 곳을
It was a great place to live,
그때 그 노아의 식구들이
and they wanted to go to the east.
게 바로 메소포타미아
But that
엄청난 문명은
that's how the Mesopotamian civilization started, right?
자, 이 모든 문명들은
All these civilizations,
강, 이 강에서
they all share rivers actually as the beginning place,
가질 수밖에 없죠. 왜? 농경 사회, 농경 문명이
because they are agricultural civilizations.
어디로 갈 수밖에 없겠습니까? 바다로 나갈 수밖에
They had to go to the sea, to the oceans.
이동을 하기 시작합니다.
So the civilizations moved from rivers to the coasts, to the oceans.
그럼 지중해로 오면은
When they neared the Mediterranean Sea,
설명을 하나 넘기고 하는 게 낫겠.
let me go to the next slide.
지중해로 넘어오면은 이제 지중해 속에서도 작은 해협 하나가 있죠. 에게.
There is a little strait called the Aegean Sea.
유럽의 역사는 유럽의 문명은 엄청난 각축전을 일으키고
And from this begins the European civilization, in which there were many conflicts and battles.
있기 위해서 반드시 필요했던 어떤 그 역사적 시련이 사연이
So I want to trace the history of the European civilization.
충분하게 내재되어 있었던 겁니다. 그 에게해라는
So most of it begins in the Aegean Sea.
에게해를 바라 오른쪽을 놓고 보면 우측이 바로 뭐냐?
On the right side of the Aegean Sea is Turkey and the Ottoman Empire in the past, and the Byzantine Empire as well.
너무나 찬란한 문명을 일으켰던
It was a glorious empire.
그 에게해를 건너면 바로 여러분들이 잘 아는 그리스
On the west of the Aegean Sea, it was the Greek civilization, the Hellenistic culture.
이 양대 문명을
So these were the two major civilizations that clashed at the Aegean Sea.
소크라테스
And as many of you know, Socrates, Plato, Demos,
그다음에 라오콘, 상할주, 뱀이 남자들 그렸지.
and all these Greek myths, they all came into life through Greek civilization.
뱀이 희극해서 그러니까 우리 인생의 그 고통을 상징하는 최대의 걸작.
There's a snake in the Greek civilization mythology as well that represents the pain of human life.
이런 모든 것이 거기서 다
All
피었어.
this Greek culture blossomed in
이밖에 할 수 있었던 것은 바로
the Greek civilization.
강위협을 통해서 시작된 이 문명은
The civilizations that started in rivers, it ran into limitations, so they had to go to the coast and the ocean to grow more. The sun rises from the east and sets in the west, and just like that, the civilizations moved from rivers to the oceans. So back in the days, there were different conflicts and clashes between different powers. And with wars, there was advancement in civilizations. War, people fight wars to win. And to win, you have to fight with advanced weapons. And that's how civilization actually advances. So wars usually serve as the source of innovation. And from next was the Hellenistic culture of Alexander the Great. And there was the integration of the Greek culture and the Western culture. There were three major conquerors in the history, right? So Alexander the Great, Napoleon, and Genghis Khan, and Aquila. Alexander the Great of Macedonia. They're all related to us, right? They ruled the world. They conquered the world. They made people in Europe tremble with fear. And these are the people like Genghis Khan or King Attila. Wars and history are written by the victors. If you look at the big arc of history, it was not Europe that dominated the world. But history is always written from the victor's side. So the true history of mankind must be restored. It must be discovered again. That could be one symbol that true peace has been achieved. Because of difference, war occurs. We who are born in this generation, what do we need to do? And I'd like to awaken all of you here of the mission that we need to fulfill. And beyond the Hellenistic culture, we go into the Roman Empire. All roads lead to Rome. That's what it says. So after the Roman Empire, there was the Spanish Empire in the Iberian Peninsula. The Spanish Empire dominated not only Spain but also the South America, Central America. And after the Spanish Empire, the British Empire dominates after the Spanish Armada was beaten by the British fleet. As we can see, the sun is going to the west. It is said that in the British Empire, the sun never sets.
해가 지지 않는 나라한테 해가 졌어요.
Although that used to be the case, now it's no longer the case.
신대륙을 발견한 그들에 의해서 오늘날 미국을
Because of the emergence of the US as a great power, the British Empire no longer rules the world. The US is the great power that dominates the world.
100년 전부터 이 세계의
From about 100 years
기득권을 가지고
ago,
키를
the US became a global major power,
집단을 아까 말씀드린
especially after the end of the First World War in 1914.
원래 연합군과 또 동맹군의
This
화합
was
체제가 안 됐어요. 윌슨이 지배하던 시대.
first
여러분도 잘 알고
during the presidency of Wilson.
자율주의를 지향하는 우리나라
The US tried to stay neutral in the First World War,
정신이 바로 윌슨의 민족 자율주의.
as the principle of self-determination used to be
이러한 전쟁의
the main principle
휘말렸던
of the US. So they wanted to stay neutral, but the European countries, they
무장하지
goaded
않는 것은
and tried to provoke the US.
케이스가
And there was a firing at a submarine actually sent from Europe,
더 이상 못 참겠다 해갖고
and the US,
뛰어
they joins the war.
세계대전 제2차 세계대전
And through
노르망디
the First and the Second World War, the US becomes a major power. And through the landing operation at Normandy in France,
안에 다 백지를 들고 다
the Allied forces eventually beat Germany,
100년을 약 100년
and
지금 집행을 해요.
the US has been a global power for about 100 years.
이제 태평양이 건너오면
And the sun finally is coming over the Pacific Ocean.
태평양을 건너왔어요. 대한민국.
Now it has come all the way to South Korea.
지금 이건 미리 다 말씀드리고
I already told you about this.
강기가 갈수록 빨리 돌아가죠. 자, 그래서 지금은 이제 어떤지 봅시다.
So what kind of generation are we living in right now?
공에서 떠서
The sun has gone all the way around the planet.
문명을 일으키면서 엄청난 고도의 발달된
There have been many different human civilizations, and with the advancement of civilization, the sun has gone around the planet.
잘못된 이 문명은
But the civilization which
우리 인류
had a wrong beginning in the first place
생각으로 잘 먹고 잘 살기 위해서 고도로 발달시킨 그 문명에 의해서 인류는 지금까지 오래
has been continued until now due to the desire to live well and eat well. And throughout history, it has come back to the place where the civilization started.
있는지 들어왔는 것입니다. 그런 지금 현상이 되고 있습니다. 자, 그래서 여기 보면은 서기
So there is a saying called the spirit of the West comes to the East.
동쪽으로 이것을 우리 동양의 조선 명종 때
Under the King Myeongjong of the Joseon dynasty, there was a prophet named Namsago, and he prophesied that the spirit of the West will come to the East. And also there's another saying called passing away the old and welcoming the new.
성경신다 이렇게 말하는 사람들도 많은데 사실은 그보다 더 큰 왕위의 의미를 가지고 있어요. 한 시대가 끝나고
So Songgu-Yongshin, the saying means one generation passes away and we welcome a new generation,
이것을 보내고
sending away the old,
새로운 것을
Yongshin, to welcome the new.
보내고 가야 할 것은
What needs to be gone needs to disappear
우선 존재해서는 안 돼요.
because it should no longer exist. There should be an end to one generation, and we need to welcome a new generation. So this is a prophecy made by Namsago,
그 시절, 그 좋은 시절을
and there will be
후대
a great generation
우주
which all creation is waiting for.
다 학수고대하고 있는 거예요. 바로 이 성부형식.
This is Songgu-Yongshin.
만물고대 신천문
And all creation is waiting for the new spirit of heaven.
미리 예견을 해놓고 있는 것이 바로 이런 거예요.
This has been already prophesied.
인류의 문명사를 놓고 봐도
So if you look at the big arc of human civilization, what kind of generation are we living in right now?
아, 이거 하나 빠졌네요. 지금 보니까 이거 안 보고 설명을 하다 보니까 뭐가 빠졌어요? 대각장.
And I missed one point, which was 대갑자년, the year of 갑자, which was year 1984. So the significance of this year is that the universe made a full orbit around the universe. It takes 3,600 years for the universe to come back to the original place. And finally, in 1984, after 3,600 years, finally came to the original beginning. So that's what I'm trying to say about Songgu Yongshin, passing away the old and welcoming the new. So this is a time when the East needs to be restored, restoration of the East. And throughout this web and ebb and flow of human civilizations, we are living in the age where the East will be restored. Do you all understand what's going on? I know it's very hot today, and it's not easy to pay attention, but I can see that you're all very engaged listening. Please listen carefully and pay more attention. They'll be really appreciated. Should I give you one more present, maybe? Why do I care about how you're feeling, your responses and reactions this time? Priest Weber from Germany that I mentioned, he was very astonished by the beauty of Kumgangsan, Mount Kumgang. And I like to sing this song called 장한 사람. I'm trying my best to entertain you against boredom. Now let us watch the video of HWPL.
As people longing for peace gathered more and more, Heavenly Culture, World Peace Restoration of Light grew into a non-governmental peace organization recognized in the global community. A peace movement started with the Orders of Heaven. HWPL Chairman Imani expressed his firm belief that a world without war should be accomplished, and without any sponsorship from the country, but self-sponsored, traveled the world without rest, and have been engaged in civil diplomacy. HWPL has been united with peoples of all walks of life across the border, race, and religion, and has been engaged in peace activities. In Korea, through the memorial ceremonies of Memorial Day and Liberation Day, as well as the creation of the taeguki made with handprints, and the declaration of unification of Korea, gathered the hearts of people who desire unification. Overseas, we are promoting for the cessation of war, the international law, harmony of religion, and furthermore, peace education for children who will inherit peace in the future. Especially in Mindanao, Philippines, where a conflict raged for over 40 years, HWPL mediated a peace agreement at the civilian level, which is commended as a breakthrough. Not only that, the reliable wings of HWPL, IWPG, and IPYG are building a strong The era of heavenly culture, world peace, restoration of light has begun. At the heart of it is the World Alliance of Religions Peace Summit. The September 18th War Peace Summit, opened in the Republic of Korea, presented a new paradigm of global peace. This peaceful wave has rapidly spread to the international community and has achieved unprecedented results. The two agreements signed at the Warp Summit before the world have developed into our core peace initiatives. Keeping pace with this, HWPL's Family of Peace gather at the Warp Summit every year and hold discussions grouped by fields of expertise. The Warp Summit serves as a compass that establishes a new benchmark for peace today. We are creating a new order for the world. HWPL, to save mankind from the threat of war that is still present all over the world, we have been advancing our work in a more concrete and professional direction. HWPL International Law Peace Committee is composed of renowned legal experts from various countries. The committee has made utmost efforts with Chairman Lee to create an international instrument that is needed for today's reality. As a result, on March 14, 2016, the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War, consisting of 10 articles and 38 clauses, was proclaimed in the Republic of Korea. With countries and civil society supporting the implementation of the DPCW, people around the world are actively advocating the declaration. In 2017, a resolution in support of the DPCW was passed by the Central American Parliament, and former U.S. President Barack Obama sent a congratulatory message supporting the peace work of HWPL for the second annual commemoration of the DPCW. The new law of peace that the world is making together will change the history of humanity. Religion is returning to its original role and restoring peace. HWPL Warp Office was established to resolve conflicts and misunderstanding among religious groups. Chairman Lee's clear guidelines for religion are leading people of religion today in the right path. Here at the HWPL Warp offices, leaders of various religious groups are gathering, having discussions about religion and scriptures. These meetings are taking place in major cities around the world. The purpose of such comparative study of religious texts is to bring religion back to its original role and become one under the will of the Creator. Along with the world's religious leaders, the Warp Office is steering towards a peaceful future. We are building peace that will last for future generations. Now we need education for peace. The right education can change our future. HWPL is instilling precious values so that children can create a happy future with their own hands and protect it. HWPL appoints peace educators and is making efforts in training these very people who will educate and sow the seed of peace to students. HWPL will also implement peace education after discussing with the educational institutions of each country to adjust the curriculum and teaching materials to suit the systems of each country. The number of HWPL's peace academies is increasing around the world, and they are teaching about our peace movement and spirit. More and more educational institutions around the world are promising to cooperate with HWPL in its peace education. Through such education, our children will grow into leaders who will protect peace. We travel around the world and carry out a real peace movement. HWPL traveled to approximately 100 countries through 28 trips in the last 6 years and achieved substantial results rather than just a peaceful cry. Since the April 27 South-North Summit, inter-Korean relations have emerged as the world's main concern. In 2010, HWPL Chairman Mani Lee proclaimed the Declaration of Unification. It contains a roadmap to the reunification of South and North Korea. Just like the content, world leaders are actively participating in the HWPL peace movement while discussing peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. In particular, the 27th World Peace Tour showed that the peaceful unification on the Korean Peninsula is the key to world peace. We have received enthusiastic support from people from all walks of life for HWPL peace movements and the peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula. The Romanian parliament, which settled down their dark past 25 years ago, was established itself as a forum for discussing peace. On November 21, 2014, HWPL was invited to the 25th anniversary ceremony of the fall of communism in Eastern Europe. During the event, former presidents of Eastern Europe promised to support the peaceful unification of the Korean Peninsula. To keep that promise made 4 years ago, former presidents and leaders of Eastern Europe gathered again in May 2018 at the Palace of Parliament. The meeting was held under the theme Solidarity of Empathy for Peace. In attendance were presidents, political leaders, legal professionals, heads of civic groups, educators, and journalists of Europe. With the peace advocate, they discussed the peace initiatives that HWPL is pursuing, especially the unification of the Korean Peninsula. The high-level peace meeting lasted 4 hours. The leaders with extensive knowledge and experience participated in the serious discussion. We began to build a new state, and we wanted it to be a peace-loving democratic state. We sincerely tried to do it, but it was difficult to do this. First of all, our poor education did not allow us to do this. It was lack of education and knowledge. And it is very difficult to build a completed state in the conditions of war. One of the most important tasks that HWPL is doing now is finding solutions to get out of this difficult situation and cease wars in all possible ways. The great feat of Chairman Lee is to unite us and to achieve that the UN adopts the declaration so that a law should appear that would regulate responsibility for violating a peaceful life. There is a so-called betrayal of intellectuals. This means when people responsible for the development of basic values, the meanings of these very programs and projects of advanced thinking processes and ordering of the world order do not play their part. Let's try a new approach to the current situation and a new philosophy of the world. Let us not be the ones that only say it in words, but try this new approach, not stumbling over an atmosphere that I described.
искренними, но говорящими людьми, результат усилий которых споткнется вот об эту атмосферу, которую я немножко драматизируя описал.
If you ever have to write a dictionary of war, I think that 80 to 90% of the terminology of these dictionaries will come from Europe. Europe has launched 2 world wars, and this is the next step that involuntarily comes to my memory. Why do we today, Europe, lose? I think from the fact that we are non-observant, very often not courageous and irresponsible. To do this, we need a dialogue at the beginning, in which we formulate a joint assessment and common values. If we have a joint assessment and shared values, I guarantee you a quick plan for us to overcome this challenge very quickly. Practice shows that if we are able to engage in a dialogue that would not be complicated, it is my belief that in the framework of the dialogue, we can purpose, including today's agenda, the problems of the relations between North and South Korea. The answer as about uniting a single nation that lives in 2 states today.
Яка сьогодні живе у 2 державах. Let's do together.
We've heard
What we have to do. We have seen what we need to do. Now it is time to do it. And together we can do it.
what I plan to do in this new era is to start a new work, a work called peace. When everyone's heart is gathered under peace, wars will cease to exist. I hope presidents with profound experience will guide the way and provide insight. And with this, HWPL will work even harder. We will relentlessly work until our goal is achieved. And not about who has the perfect support for a peaceful reunification of the Korean Peninsula first, they personally wrote and delivered their letters to Chairman Lee. As a person who supports and participates in HWPL's peace activities, I look forward to seeing Korea transform into a republic of peace. I sincerely support the unification of North and South Korea as a key factor in contributing to world peace. I sincerely support the unification of Korea. A successful meeting and a very special human contact. I hope these efforts would be successful and a model for the world. I am grateful to Chairman Manny Lee for his efforts toward peace. Chairman Lee's peace activities made the people to have hope towards achieving peace. I hope a new era would bring the unification of the Korean Peninsula as its fruit. Also, leaders in politics, culture, education, and law signed their support for the peaceful unification, hoping the long division and conflict on the Korean Peninsula would come to an end. Like this, the world is supporting the peace work of HWPL passionately. A peace mission to the United States where the UN headquarters are only were only a few days after successfully finishing the 27th World Peace Tour. To gather the power of support for the proposal of the DPCW, the answer to peace, at the UN General Assembly, which passes the resolution in accordance with the principle of majority rule. The largest international organization, the UN, was established in 1945 to ensure world peace and security. The HWPL Peace Mission has arrived at the United Nations, where 193 countries are currently members and contribute to the welfare and peace of all humanity. Chairman Lee expressed the intentions of his heart that he has long held at the gathering of UN peacekeepers in front of 145 countries. I have been working with the culture of heaven to restore this world to the complete light. I have transcended borders, race, and religion, and I have only been working for the cessation of war and for peace. If all the leaders of all countries are true when they say that they love their country and the people, they will sign the international law for the cessation of war and for peace. It is the same for religious leaders as well. I have worked with the two wings, the two groups, IPYG and IWPG until now. It is now the time to complete peace with the spirit that the UN had when it had begun. So I hope that all of you will become of one heart and one mind and fulfill a world of peace. As soon as the presentation of Chairman Lee for world peace and the future of humanity was over, all 600 people answered with a standing ovation. I think that it is an organization
its mission and its vision are consistent with the UN goal or the UN Charter, which is to promote international peace and security. And I think, of course, UN will be a natural place for the agenda to be discussed.
an innovative answer to a peaceful future, the DPCW. This step of today's visit to the UN headquarters to pioneer a new era of peace will be recorded as a historic visit. The results of a substantial and groundbreaking tour of peace in Europe and the Americas have been reported all over the world, including the Republic of Korea. In particular, 120 media outlets in the United States reported on peace at the same time, and 301 media outlets from 37 countries around the world have become trumpets for HWPL's peace movement. Peace cannot be achieved only with the efforts of one person. When the voices demanding peace come together and become one, a miracle takes place. Now, with consciousness that we are not the citizens of one country, but we are citizens of the world, we should strive for the peace and prosperity of mankind and leave behind the differences of race, gender, nationality, religion, and class. A world that takes one step further toward peace. Before long, the world will adopt the DPCW, the answer to peace, and you will be able to witness significant changes. With this, HWPL will open a new era without war, a path of peace that everyone has dreamed of.
How was the video, everyone? I had to give you some notice in advance, but I'm sure that you are all impressed with the video of HWPL's activities. The reunification of the Korean Peninsula will lead to world peace. That was very impressive to me. South and North Korea are the only countries that are left divided in the world. So what does it mean in the big arc of human civilization? That is the reality we're living in. That's why I'm giving you this lecture at this time, right? In this reality, this dire reality, we must know the reality very well. Today you're discovering that a new system of international law is being made. The water is being flowed underneath you. Transcending all borders of nation, ethnicity, religion, we all have one ideal, which is peace. And with this answer for peace, the chairman of HWPL is going around the world to bring about peace, and you are witnessing this work yourself, personally. As I said before, we must be able to discern what kind of generation we're living in. It's not just due to some leaders or due to some political decisions that reunification can take place, but it is when all people in the world realize the importance of peace that peace can be realized. That's why HWPL is working for peace in this vein, and HWPL is working to establish the Declaration of Peace and Cessation of War, the DPCW, the 10 Articles and 38 Clauses, through bringing together different legal experts around the world and having an objective view on what's needed for world peace. And this is in the process of about to be introduced in the General Assembly of the United Nations. And this is what we're witnessing through the video, this work of the DPCW being introduced. And Chairman Man-hee Lee also was a student volunteer in the war. He pledged to the dying comrades in the war that he will make a peaceful world. After making that pledge and promise, he has worked all his life to bring about peace. He's 88 years old. And although, despite his age, he goes around the world to give lectures and to enlighten people of this generation. This is not just the work of some biased position or interest, or it does not come from some prejudice, but this is truly for the work of peace. So as we look back on what I said in the lecture, watching this video was very necessary. That's why I received this video clip from HWPL, and I'm using this video as an educational content for all of you. So one more thing we can learn from this video is all throughout human civilization, it was the history of human beings. But the history of the East must be rewritten again. And in this reality of recreation we're living currently, we cannot deny this changes, this generation. Today, through this lecture, please let us learn something and also be able to learn what kind of generation we're living in, what kind of time we're living in. I'll end soon, so please be patient. So, there is a famous patriot in Korea whose name is Kim-gu, and Kim-gu wrote an autobiography called My Wishes. And there were many things that Kim-gu wanted to say to us.
그런 내용들이 담겨져 있고 또 우리에게 요구하는 일이 있었고 또 앞으로의 세계는 어떤 세상이
So he writes about what kind of world will it be in the future.
그런 내용이 있는데
That's what it contains.
시대와 이 시대가 지금 당면한 과정
The world we're living in
일치하고
is very closely related to what Kim-gu wrote in the past.
인용을 해보고
So I'd like to quote him on several passages.
대본 자서전에 보면은
In his autobiography, it says,
신념이 뭐냐고 묻는다면 나는 자유와
if someone asks me what my political ideology is, I'll answer my ideology is freedom and liberty. It helps us to think about the value of liberty, right?
그다음에 이 평화에 대해서도 이렇게 말씀.
And about peace as well, he said, peace
우리나라에서 우리나라로 말미암아 세계 평화가
will be
이루어지는
achieved in the world through
이런 것이 오늘날
achieving peace in the Korean Peninsula.
보고 있는 것입니다.
That's the age we're about to welcome.
어떻게 될 것인가?
And
답을 다 줬습니다.
about culture as well,
원하는 것은
what I want is not a rich country,
경제적으로
a powerful country,
무역의
or economic
오직
superpower,
가지고 싶은 것은
but what I really want to have is a country that has high culture and the power of truly beautiful culture.
이제는 송구영신이라고 말한 것처럼
As I said before, Cheongu Yongshin, which is passing away the old and welcoming the new. As we live in this generation, we must all listen to the high culture and try to emulate that culture.
그런 숙명이 우리는 지금 시대적으로 처해 있습니다.
And that's the mission given to us in this generation. And that's what he also wrote in his autobiography, My Wishes.
자, 안중근이가
And there's also the patriot An Jung-kun.
31살에 운명했습니다.
He died at the age of 31.
너무나 아까운
He
충성.
was
이또 히로부미
he left too early. He assassinated the prime minister of Japan back at the time, Ito Hirobumi.
7발의 실탄을 놓고
He
수익한에다가
assassinated him with 7 bullets in the station of Harbin, China.
경술국치 한일 합방을 보기 싫어서 2월 14일 날 선고를 받고 3월 10일
It was because he did not want to see the annexation of Korea with Japan, so he was condemned to death under Japan.
보기 싫었던 분입니다.
He really did not want to see Korea being annexed with Japan,
운명했습니다.
and he died.
중요한 것이 있어요.
But there's an important lesson.
내가 이또 히로부미 당신을 옥중에서 저격한 이유가 있다.
There's a reason why I assassinated you, and there were 15 reasons for that.
네 번째
And the 14th reason for assassination was,
뭔지 아십니까 혹시?
do you know what it is? The 14th reason?
내가 당신을
The reason why I killed you is
동양의
because
평화를
you harmed the peace in the East.
죽인 이유가
That's why I assassinated you.
우리죠. 브라운 반자동 권총을 다 펴면서 쏠
With
때
this pistol, he assassinated
쓰러져가는
Hirobumi,
이또
이또.
히로부미를 넘어지는 그 모습을 보고
and as he saw,
얘기 아니겠습니까? 내가 너를 지금 쏘는 것은 물론 글로 그렇게 남겼지만 동양의 평화를 지키기
the reason why he killed Ito Hirobumi was because
이거는 하나의
the peace in Korea, Japan, and China was harmed.
하나였는데
All these 3 countries were one together, but why do you
이 말씀이
separate them into different ethnicities and nationalities?
말씀에 담긴 안중근의 그 생각
And the thoughts of An Jung-gun and his philosophy are reflected on his writings and on his book.
한국의 평화 통일이 세계
As Kim-gu said, the peace in the Korean Peninsula is the key to achieving world peace,
어떤 의미라는 것을
and we must know exactly what this means
적 측면에서 미리 이렇게 말을 해요.
from this prophetic point of view.
인류가 이제 회복이 되고
So human civilization
기로에 서 있다면은 아까 독일
is about to be restored,
한국 사회에
and just like the German reunification,
한반도를 중심으로 한 이 모든 주변국 또는 더 크게는 세계가
All the countries surrounding the Korean Peninsula and the world must acknowledge and recognize and share the need for Korean reunification, and that will give us peace. And nobody can block that peace,
어떤 힘센 나라가 막을 수
and
없습니다.
nobody can block the reunification either.
이것이 백성의
This is the will of the people.
민심이 천심이다.
So the will of the people is the will of heaven, right?
진리 맞지 않습니까?
This is the natural order of things as well.
인류의 뜻이라면
This is the will of mankind,
그것이고 하늘의
and this is will of heaven.
이러한 인류가 가져야 할 마땅히 누려야 할 동질성
All the peace that and coexistence that we need to share as mankind,
특히 우리 한반도를 중심으로 한 우리 주변국부터
especially the powerful nations surrounding the Korean Peninsula.
한반도의 평화를 우리가 아무리 통일을 하고 싶어도 말로는 통일을 하자 시켜줄게 평화시켜줄게 하지만 사실은 통일을 원하는 나라 평화를 원하는 나라가
Many people claim that reunification and peace are really important in the Korean Peninsula, but all these nations are only sticking to their own personal and political interests.
독일 통일을 그렇게 말을 그래서 아까 이 교훈을 삼아야 된다고 했습니다.
So we must reflect on the case of the German reunification.
올해 집회 때 촛불을 들었다 해서 통일이
As I said,
그
it was not the people holding up the candlelights that achieved reunification, but it was the time and also
다 원했다는 거예요.
the international stage at the time that allowed the reunification of Germany. It was because all Europe wanted reunification of Germany. The Korean Peninsula as well is the same case. The peninsula, geopolitically speaking, is at a very strategic point. It's the tip of the continent, and it is also a peninsula, so it connects to the ocean.
세력 또는 나라들은 말로는 그런 게 해결돼야 되고 저런 게 해결돼야
All
된다 하면서도
leaders, they claim that all these things need to be solved,
끝까지 숨겨잡고
but they do not agree on the reunification of Korea.
이걸 해결해야 된다.
But this needs to be solved, right?
통일이고 평화가 된다.
That itself will be peace and reunification. Physically forcing reunification will not be enough.
그래서 지금 세상은 이 하늘문화세계평화 왕국 이 연세,
So at the age of 88 right now, as you saw in the video,
힘든 그 연세예요.
it's just hard just to sit, whether it be summer or winter.
미천한 자나 높은 자나 가질 것이 다 만나면서 지금
He's meeting everyone across different
이 평화의 필요성
levels and statuses, and he's awakening people of the importance of peace.
귀를 기울이고
And everyone in the world is listening to his message and to this call for peace.
기울이고 나아가고 있습니다.
So everybody's bringing
대한민국은
is gathering together for peace, but South Korea is not like that.
희생을 해서
That's why, with me as a sacrifice, I'm
지도자분들을 여기 좀
invited leaders of different sectors to let you know about this kind of work.
편협된 생각과 가치관으로 이런 말을 들어서는 안 됩니다.
Please do not listen to my words with your own thoughts or your own personal interests.
통일을 할 건가?
Can this government deny this kind of work?
핑계할 수도 없고.
They have no more excuses to say. That's why we must be able to discern the generation and the time we're living in. And this is the right that we must be able to enjoy. And this is also a duty as citizens. And become one together and
온 세계에 구현시
achieve peace in the world. We must all be like that.
장시간
Thank you for listening to me for a long time.
긴 시간 이렇게 시간 여러분들 함께 경청해 주셔서 대단히 감사합니다.
Thank you once again.